All right, the development of the sonnet, pretty relevant, important literary contribution during this time period. As we go throughout the semester, you'll see, like when we get to the Victorian age, theirs is more about the novel, the modern era, short stories, kind of their contributions and such. But here we have kind of the poet, the sonnet. We will read some today that are love poems, but they're not the happy, flowery two lovers hopefully getting together. As we'll see, a lot of the themes are about love and struggle. I'll use the term unrequited love, non-reciprocated love. Somebody has a lot of love for somebody, but they're not getting any love back, and the pain that goes with that. So that feeling. There is a PowerPoint on Moodle that would be very helpful for you if you have not gone through it already. It's the one. It's about sonnets. We'll kind of go through it a little bit here in a moment. But in essence, it summarizes what's on these 2 pages as well. The 3 distinct kinds of sonnets. You need to know them. You need to know the characteristics, the rhyme scheme for them. It's not difficult. You just have to make a minor effort. The 3 different types are the Italian, the English, and the Spenserian. That's the easy way to remember it. The Italian could go by another name, and that could be Petrarch. You may have heard of him before. The English sonnet could be called Shakespearean sonnet, and Spenserian is just Spenserian. So it doesn't matter which one you know them by, but they're kind of interchangeable. So there's 3 kinds, even though I've just named 5 or 6 different ones. There are certain rules to writing sonnets, just like when we were with Chaucer. With him, it was a set amount of syllables, and it was couplets, and he had all of these other rules and such. And we have very similar ones here with regards to sonnets. They're 14 lines, so if they're 20, it's not a sonnet. Okay, if it's 80, it's not a sonnet. Sonnets are 14 lines. That's how we can get through so many of them today. They're short. They take a minute to go through. They're not very complex. They're written in iambic pentameter. You might have heard of that before. It's not difficult to understand, and when we listen to them and go over them, you will hear it. It's a rhythm. It's a cadence. You can see the example there. My love is like to ice and I to fire. Now, you don't read like this all the time, that type of thing, but you can see the emphasis, on the syllables. My love is like to ice and I to fire. Ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. Important words, not so important. Stressed, not so stressed, and so on. And we'll break down iambic pentameter here in a moment. What exactly is this? Kind of like your etymology, figuring out what the words mean. An iamb is another name for a foot. It's 2 syllables, and there are 5. So we have 10 syllables per line. Okay, so pretty simple. All right, so you will see all of the lines are, in essence, the same. So they look like little squares, little blocks. The first one, the Italian sonnet by Petrarch. This one is very different from the other 2. The other 2 are the ones that you might get them confused with each other. This one is vastly different. So hopefully you're able to go, well, is it Italian or is it possibly one of the other ones? Well, if it's not one of these, it's Italian. It is 8 lines and 6 lines, octave, 6 sestet. 8 and 6 equals the 14 that we needed. The first stanza presents a problem. So the first chunk has a problem. And then the bottom chunk has some sort of resolution, some sort of answer to the problem. And you'll see today that a lot of the sonnets deal with love. The problem of love. Why isn't somebody loving me? Blah, 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 whatever. And then there's usually some sort of advice, some sort of wrapping it up in the bottom. Okay, the bottom of it. And you can see what the rhyme scheme is for the octave. Abba, Abba, A-B-B-A, A-B-B-A. And then the sestet is either C-D-E, C-D-E or C-D, C-D, C-D. Very simple to remember, and putting those, all 3 of these side by side, you will see drastic differences and very easy mnemonic devices to help keep them separate. But you have to make that effort. Here's an example of Petrarch, of a sonnet. You can tell right off, obviously it's 14 lines. There is a nice little break in there to kind of help you with the octave and sestet, the 8 and the 6. If that line wasn't there to show us and it was just one big block of text, Hopefully you can figure out a rhyme scheme going to the very end of the line. You see fight, day, today, light, fight, day. Those don't rhyme. Fight, day, today does. So A, B, B, light is fight, A, B, B, A, ABBA, A, B, B, A. So right off the bat, you should be able to figure out. When we get to the Spenserian and Shakespearean, you usually can go to the bottom, because as you will find out, it's the bottom 2, 3, 4 lines that will differentiate which is which based on the rhyme scheme. So you'll see an example of that in a bit. The English one, or Shakespearean, is one that's very popular. It's probably the most famous format of writing the sonnets. They considered him a master. You might know him from reading your, several, well, not several anymore, we changed that, but the plays and such. We'll do Macbeth, and you did Romeo and Juliet. But, he has 120 sonnets, I think. He has a lot, okay? Tons. And his are broken up by 3 quatrains. You can see quattro, 4. And so 4 times 3, okay, is obviously 12. And then it ends with a couplet. And we remember couplets from Chaucer. So we have the 14 lines still. You can see how the rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B. So already it's different. So if you come up to between this and the previous one, and one's A, B, B, A, ABBA, or A, B, A, B, well, you can figure it out between those two. But notice the focal point at the end, the EF, EF, G, G. He doesn't have repetition of rhymes. Each stanza has a new rhyme. You will see the next one, they start to repeat rhymes. And so that might be a mnemonic device to help you. Okay, if there are repetition of rhyming sounds, then you know which one it is and which one it isn't. Again, he develops a question or a problem in the quatrains in the big portion, just like Petrarch did. But the bottom couplet, the last 2 lines, there is advice. There is some meaning to things. And we will see his today talking about love or whatever, and it kind of has a different, you kind of have a negative feeling. You don't think he is in love with this woman, but we actually find out in the bottom 2 lines that he is in love with her, and he kind of wraps it up nicely. So usually problem, advice, we see that in both kinds. With Shakespeare, here's an example. The best way to figure it out is, we do have some lines broken up in here. That may not always be there for sonnets. And so simply looking at the rhyme scheme should help you out. Now, if I were to pop this one up next to the Petrarch and said, okay, which one is which one, hopefully you can figure out by the repetition of A, B in that first stanza, maybe even the couplet at the end, because if you remember, the Petrarch rhyme scheme didn't have a couplet at the bottom. And so that might help you differentiate. Spending 5 minutes and hammering this stuff in your head, you will be able to, just boom, tell me what kind that is, boom. But some people don't do that 5-minute study. And then at the final exam, they don't do it again. And so they miss those, which is foolish. All right, there's a couple of things. 154 Shakespearean sonnets. So I knew it was quite a bit. Often wrote about a lot of subjects. Shakespeare did. Go back a little bit. A friend, a dark-haired girl, a rival poet, and even some about himself. There was some controversy surrounding the sex of some of his intended recipients. There is some, question and theories out there that some of them were directed towards men, others to women. Can't obviously prove those anymore, so it's just kind of conspiracy theories to some degree. The last one is Edmund Spenser, or Spenserian. So you can see Spenser, Spenserian, Shakespeare, Shakespearean. So hopefully keep those separate. These are very similar. Notice the first stanza rhyme scheme is identical. It's the second stanza that helps differentiate between the two. He repeats the B rhyme. Between the third and the second stanza, he repeats the C rhyme. Remember, Shakespeare doesn't repeat his rhymes. He comes up with different rhymes, rhyme scheme for each stanza. Spenser starts to repeat. Don't just go, oh, well, he has a couplet, it's Shakespeare, or oh, it's a couplet, Spenser. Remember, Shakespeare had a couplet too. The main difference, the only difference really is the repetition of certain rhymes. Okay? So however, you have to remember that. Maybe you think Shakespeare is a better writer, so he doesn't have to rely on repeating. It doesn't matter. Just remember that. It's a simple thing. And here's slow down. Come on. There's an example of a Spenserian. a quick glance, it looks identical to Shakespeare. However, the main difference is that jump to the second stanza and go, oh, we repeated the B. Sin, win, begin, sin. I mean, we repeated them. So that rhyme scheme is Spenserian. Okay, so remember that. Basic themes and premises. Notice the love is always in there. Love. Spenser likes to put in some things about art and nature, not necessarily on the same level of the pastoral poems that we talked about, but it's prevalent and dripping throughout his type of sonnets. Shakespeare's love and human relationships. You will see today it's not just about love, but it's the relationships between two people and the love that they have, or that one person has for that individual. And so this is definitely, love sonnets and love poems. Just might not be completely what you might have grown up thinking. Roses are red, violets are blue, you smell like shoes, whatever those rhymes are. When we get to the Romantic era, that's where you imagine those rhymes to be, or those type of poems. But when we get to the Romantic era, there's nothing at all romantic about the Romantic era. So the most romance that we have in this semester shows up in the Renaissance. Different aspects about this is more into conjunction with the big ideas about humanism as humanist ideas. Not giving all credit and beliefs and everything up above, but look at what wonderful things humans can do, and we can rely on each other, that type of thing. And we see courtly love and the power of art and all of these things, coming out through the literary works of this particular time period. Some basic lit terms, things like that, you should have already had in there. But the three different kinds, understand the difference between those. The quatrain, you can see that means, well, how many lines? Well, hopefully you can see the root of that as being 4. Iambic pentameter, okay, remember the iamb is 2 stressed and unstressed syllables, and there's 5 of those, so 2 times 5, 10. Hopefully you're able to pick that up and keep, if you have to think the ba-boom, 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 I mean, it seems stupid, but if that helps you with remembering what that stressed and unstressed actually sounds like, that would be a good thing to keep in your mind. Okay.